All right, so we're back here once again. Couch Coach Live, Couch Coaches. We are back. We are here. The final episode of 2020, and wow, it's gonna be interesting now. This is it for 2020, and I got my guy JB in the building. What's going on, JB?
What's up, man? How you doing? Nothing much. Hopefully 2021 better days are ahead because this has been a very strange year. I don't think many people would call it a good year, but I don't think it's been a completely horrible year at the same time.
Yeah, this year is very crazy, especially. And I think back, as far as this time last year and looking forward to 2020, the different things I kind of, different, different types of goals that you want to kind of achieve and certain things that you want to do. Like I know my end, I was really wanting to travel this year, especially because my schedule kind of is now more. How can I say it? It's more, as far as it's more open than
Yeah.
previous years where I, have flexibility in my schedule more so than anything. Probably first time probably in my adult life at this point. But 2020 looked like it was gonna be kind of that year where okay, you have an opportunity to see the world in a few little places. But it is what it is. But it was still a great year. There's a lot of stuff that did happen this year. Of course, a lot of things just the different types of verbiage. We looked at social distancing is a key term now.
I know.
um and if especially the death of the potlucks, which just like
Yeah.
you don't yeah, I don't think that's ever going to come back. I think there was one things where
Oh
everybody,
man.
yeah.
Buffets are probably dead for a while too. Yeah, I was just thinking about how we would go to Golden Corral sometimes, and I was like, yeah, man. I was like, man, Shoney's breakfast buffet,
Yes.
man.
Yes. Yeah, that thing still hit because I remember we was in Mississippi and I went
Yeah,
there a few times. And it's so bad because our hotel was next to the Shoney's. And I think we were there for like 2 weeks. We probably went like three times. Like pretty much
oh
every day.
yeah, dude, yeah, man. That's Shoney's breakfast buffet, man. That shit is fire. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Buffets are dead for a while.
Oh,
Now, man, like my life, like if I order food, man, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub coming to my house, man. I'm not going out to a restaurant for a while.
I know. And that's another thing too,
Yeah,
like the whole eating out experience and just the whole,
yeah,
especially like when it comes to intertwined with sports where, you'll go to
yeah,
the bar and, you'll watch. And then that's another thing too, like how this year, like out of all the years, like having weekends off, it's like with nothing to do. Which that was the kind of the weird thing about this year too, where in most cases, it would be like alternate weekends or whatever. But this one was like every weekend was off. And like you said, it would have been perfect opportunities to go like to bars and catch games because this was a good, it was still even though the games were still played, but they were good games
yeah.
to be social amongst a group of people. And like you said, and then sport events is the craziest thing where now you're still able to go, but just the whole thing of that. And I think that's one thing, and it's funny because it's so weird to think because I went to a game in February, and it's funny to think that I would have never thought in a million years that that'd have been my last sporting event for the foreseeable future.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. Our lives definitely changed a lot. A lot of things that we kind of took for granted. It's kind of crazy, man. When things that are like a big part of our lives, man, we always take them for granted, and like you don't realize how good you have it until it's gone. So, I mean, that's one big thing I'm going to take away from this year is that, like, a lot of the normalcy, a lot of the things that we did, man, that we just took for granted, we can't do them right now, and it's kind of unfortunate, man.
Yeah, and it sucks because and like be on a local tip where as far as high school sports, I'm really big into high school sports, and
Yeah.
actually one of my guys, alum of the show, got Chip. He's this was one of his his second year coaching. I was like I regretted not going to his games in 2019, but I kept on saying, oh well, 2020 is gonna be a little different. every Friday I'll be there. I take that trip to Amelia on Friday, a couple of Friday nights,
Yeah.
and it did happen. And then also, just as far as catching Highland Springs games or just catching games around the area. And that's another thing too, where I kind of BS in the winter. Cause I was like, oh, well, I'll just go. Cause I'll be like, I go to a game right after work, then I like, oh, well, I'm a BS. And then I was like, well, I might go try to see, catch some playoffs, catch the state championships, whatever. This and the third didn't have a state championship. So it's like, something, right. And yeah, just the whole experience and being overcharged for, for things like, concessions, parking, like going to FedEx Field and getting, paying $35 to walk like 2.5 miles to the stadium. All those little things, right?
Yeah, man. But yeah, hopefully things things are gonna get better. I hope that, maybe in about 4 or 5 months, we can start getting some things back. I'm not saying that things are gonna, be back to normal entirely, but I hope that some things can, like start getting back to normal sooner rather than later.
I know. And, hopefully we will. And, like I said, next season, especially, locally, as far as hopefully high school sports come back into fray. If it happens, we'll be in a, as Springer alums, we'll be in a brand new, spanking brand new football facility. So that'd be kind of a great thing to partake in. And then just other things that's going on. And then, so it's going to be interesting, but 2020 has definitely been a interesting year. And this today is a great day to kind of wrap it all up and just how this year we made lemons and made lemonade. We made the best of what we can this year, where, it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't the most prettiest year, but, you look at it, you got through it. Hey,
That's why, I mean, yeah, man, you gotta find I think one of the big things in life, man, so you gotta find positives from negatives. And I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, right. This shit has a silver lining. So we'll kind of reminisce on the year as well. And then we'll also kind of give our thoughts on certain topics that we're going to discuss tonight. So
okay,
the best of 2020. Who is your MVP this year in any major sport leagues, any of the leagues in sports?
Ooh, man, so this was a tough one for me. I think that, like, when I look at, the major sport leagues, I mean, there were definitely some people that came in mind, like, definitely LeBron James. I mean, he had a outstanding year. His 35, his what was his 17th year last year?
Yeah, 17.
You're 17. Yeah, age 35. He had an amazing year. But ultimately, man, I decided to give my MVP to a guy who didn't win MVP in the league last year, but he was an instrumental part of his team winning a championship and his team winning a first championship in a long time. And I decided to give that Patrick Mahomes. Like, what he did in the playoffs, for them to be down 21 nothing, or was it 24 nothing, being down 24 nothing, that Houston game, just like that. And this dude, he erased a 24 nothing lead. Like, and I'm not saying he did it all by himself, but
yeah,
that 24 nothing lead was basically a 28-24 lead. I have never seen anything like that before. Like, because dude, like, that game came on. So I believe that game came on. That was the Sunday game, the Sunday afternoon game. And I remember waking up and I saw the score and I was like, they're down 21 nothing. And I was like, what the hell, man? Then next thing I know, it was 24-14. I was like, I was like, Houston's in trouble. Then, the following week, they get down, 14-3 against Tennessee. They come back and win that fairly easily. And then, the icing on the cake was Super Bowl, like, down and out. He had been having his worst game as a professional. And boom, boom, just like that, they end the game on a 21 nothing run. And they win the championship, man. So I decided to give it to him, man. What was crazy, man, they were 6-4. And they went on this great run, ended up getting home field advantage. And, they won their last 9 games in a row. And I mean, since he came back from that injury, man, what are they? There's something like 23-1 in their last 24 games, man. Like, they've been pretty much unbeatable for like the last year and some change, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's funny because it's funny because I was gonna give it to Patrick Mahomes as well because I don't know if you remember. So we did a Super Bowl preview right before that. I think it was that Thursday before the Super Bowl, and I was like, "Why San Francisco is gonna get pressure to Pat Mahomes?"
Yeah.
And boy, I'm telling you, I was for about 6 minutes. I was prophetic. I was like, "Watch, this is what's gonna happen." And that's when I was like, you know what, Patrick Mahomes deserves it because my biggest question mark in that game was San Francisco's pressure, like as far as and then them, having that ability to kind of stop their, that the Swiss Army knife offense that that Kansas City possesses. And they did a great job for the first 53 and a half minutes, and then Mahomes, like you said, went off 21-0 run, which. Because I remember at halftime, I was like, I stand correct. Like, and I was like, if I was San Francisco at that time, I think Kansas City only had 10 points. And I was like, you got to really be encouraged, like going in the second half to, pretty much like lay down the hammer. And I remember, tweeting that. And I was like, and lo and behold, that's what happened. Where but then also LeBron. I think LeBron is another case. Honorable mention, and just the fact that, like you said, in the 35th year, I mean, not 35th, he's 35 years old, coming off, and then it's another thing where we look at Kansas City kind of in that 50-year drought of winning the championship. And you look at the Lakers, when we talked about that early in October where, how the Lakers was in a weird way, in the previous decade, where they were kind of like a downtrodden franchise, where they haven't made the playoffs since 2013 at that particular.
Yeah.
So, and for him to kind of resurrect it, where it's funny because we'll look at like what he did with the Cavs. Win the championship, and in Cleveland, we thought that was like a feat, that's a great feat. But this is also kind of a feat of his own, where essentially this team, this team wasn't ready made to win right away, but like he was instrumental in rebuilding this franchise. Well, so I look at from that standpoint those two, and then like you said, the 17th year in the league, and course, another proud member of the club, 1984. So definitely a huge shout out to our 1984 brethren, LeBron James. And and that's you look at that from that standpoint. It's like it's an incredible feat. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting. And that's the thing too, where what kind of sucks about this in the sense where they were like only really two leagues besides NHL and Major League Baseball. But as far as so the next topic that we really want to talk about is the team of the year.
Yeah.
Who's your team of the year?
Ooh. Wow, man. This was a tough one, but again, I'm not going to give it to the Lakers, man. But I'm going to give it to another LA team in a different sport. My team of the year is the Dodgers. I honestly, man, I was really impressed, even though the season was shortened. I was really impressed with what the Dodgers did, man. Like, you look at, they had so many of these postseason heartbreaks in 2019, man. What a gut punch that was, a lot of people probably had them winning the championship in 2019, and they lose to the Nationals, who went on to win a championship. And the Dodgers, they cruised in the regular season. And, I wanted to see what would happen to them when they hit adversity. And did they hit adversity in the championship series? They were down to the Braves 3-1. And, it wasn't looking good for them, but they won that series and they ended up winning the championship. So, I would give my team of the year to the Dodgers, man. I think that they were good from start to finish. They overcame adversity and, all of the postseason heartache that they had, the prior, 7 postseasons, actually all of their hard work finally paid off. And kudos to Clayton Kershaw, man. Like he played very well in the postseason. He had that one bad start against the Dodgers, but for him to go 2-0 in the World Series and for him to finally get that championship, I'm happy for him, because if he doesn't win that championship, his legacy looks a lot funny in the light. So I'm giving my team of the year to the Dodgers, actually.
Yeah, and that's one thing too, where they kind of got rid of that proverbial monkey off their back, where, like you're saying, they've had a lot of like postseason failures, where so, And like you said, Clayton Kershaw was kind of like that was another one where we looked at like, oh, he just doesn't perform, in the big stage, and he got the monkey off his back, almost like an exorcism in a sense, where they kind of got all that together. And but yeah, I want to say I think the team of the year it's got to be to me was Kansas City. I think I like what they did. Like, we kind of talked about it, a little bit earlier as far as with the Patrick Mahomes angle, but just his team, Andy Reid, finally another guy, getting over the hump, win the Super Bowl title or Super Bowl championship, and just the fact of just 50 years in the making. This was, especially, what a kind of prestigious way. And then you look at it, that was like the last like big major sporting event that we had in this country, which is so funny to think like in February, and then, how we went from that, how we went from having, a full stadium in Miami to, to where we are now, where we, in certain places there are no fans in the stands. Certain places they are. The South.
yeah. Oh, and I'm also gonna give a shout out to the NHL team. So even though they beat my team in the championship, I hate Tampa Bay. They beat the Dallas Stars, but I'm gonna give a kudos to Tampa Bay Lightning, because you look at what happened to them the prior year. They had 128 points in the regular season, ran away with the regular season, and then they got swept in the playoffs by the 8th seed. And then this year they didn't have as good as a regular season, but their playoff failures actually made them stronger, and they ended up winning the championship. And their coach had mentioned that he had actually talked to UVA's coach quite a bit, because what happened to UVA. What's his name again? Tony Bennett?
Yeah,
Tony Bennett. He said that he had been in contact. He said that he had been in contact with Tony Bennett because in 2018. UVA, they had gotten beat by the 16 seed.
Yes.
And, that was actually, and Tony Bennett looked heartbroken. And, it's just funny how things work out. You could have a really good season, things don't work out for you, but then the next year you're still good, not as good as you were the prior year, but you end up winning the championship. And I think that in both of those teams' cases, UVA's case and to Tampa Bay's case, I think that them losing the prior year, them being so good and losing the prior year, that probably lit a fire in them. And same thing with the Dodgers as well, with all their postseason failures that they had experienced too. But yeah, I would say my runner-up would definitely be the Tampa Bay Lightning, because of what they, were able to do and what they did. They took care of business, man.
Yeah, big time. And like you said, because that was a shocker. Like when UVA lost to University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
And actually, I've been on that campus before. Once upon a time, like in 2014. But yeah, it's been a while,
and they just didn't lose, man. They got blown out in that game. And what was another reason why I gave it to Tampa Bay is you think about it, anything can happen in college basketball, because in the NCAA tournament it's one game and out, man. Like, so anything can happen. But in the NHL, man, NBA and MLB is the best of 7 series for you to lose 4 straight games. And generally speaking, let's just be honest, if a team beats you in the best 4 out of 7, you have to say that team was the better team.
Yeah.
And for them to have gotten steamrolled by Columbus, because they got beat pretty bad. Like I think the first game was close, like they lost the first game 4-3, but then the other games they were losing by 3 goals. Right. So, and for them to come back, and people made fun of them, and they were just saying that this year is gonna be different, and they proved a lot of people wrong. So like them and the Dodgers definitely proved a lot of people wrong last year. So
yeah, that's one thing too. Yeah, that's a lot. Like this year was kind of a year like a redemption, like a lot of these things that we talk about, redemption stories. So yeah. Rookie of the year. Who was the best newcomer of this year?
So this was a tough one. I'm a big bias to New Orleans, but I can't give it to Zion because Zion missed too much time. I would say rookie of the year, man. And I hate to see what happened to him last night, but my rookie of the year was Ja Morant, man. Like that kid, man. I think he's gonna be special.
Yeah.
I think the ceiling's looking up for him. I'm glad that it was only a grade 2 sprain, because actually when I saw that play last night, I thought he was gone for the rest of the year. I thought, his year was over, and I was like, damn, Memphis is done. Memphis is going to end up with like a top a top 3 pick this year.
Right.
But it's the news is better. But like, man, Ja Morant, man, he dazzled me, man. Even though they didn't make the playoffs, the way he fought valiantly in that play-in game against Dame Lillard, they went head to head, man. He impressed me a lot, man. That kid has a lot of poise. It's hard to believe he's only 20 years old, but man, that kid really impressed me this year.
Yeah, big time. So my rookie of the year is a guy who I doubted, and I'll kind of give a backstory later on about it. Justin Herbert, the Los Angeles Chargers quarterback, the Fresh Prince of Inglewood, about to be the king of Inglewood at this point. So Justin Herbert, let me tell you. So we did an NFL draft preview in April. Because I had a scenario where I thought that the Chargers was going to trade up at Justin Herbert. I thought they were going to be like, I think they was going. I had them trading with Detroit and jumping the gun to get Justin Herbert, and I thought if they do that was going to be idiotic. But luckily, Justin Herbert fell in their lap, and I'm glad they did stay put. I really wasn't a fan of Justin Herbert, and I think it's one of the things where, I think what happens when you look at the eye test at certain times, and then you kind of read some scouting reports that kind of amplify your point, which I think that's kind of one of the tragic flaws of just in modern day, where if you have an argument per se, you can find tons of articles that will support like your wrong take. So
yes,
theory. So with Justin Herbert, what he has done now, he's shattered the quarterback touchdown record for rookies this year, and it's just very promising. The young man out of Eugene, Oregon, the pride of Eugene, Oregon. What he's doing to me is very impressive. I'm definitely looking forward to his growth going forward. It pains me that I don't know if Anthony Lynn, this time next week, I don't know if he'll still be there. But and that's a part of me. It's like, even though they're at 6-9, I don't think per se, but I'm hoping. I'm hoping, but 9 times out of 10, because it's almost kind of repeat of last year where they're losing these close games.
Yeah, I know. Me and my dad talked about that actually. And I know like a lot of people, because look, man, Joe Caldwell got a raw deal, and I do think that there's a race problem in the NFL, especially when it comes to like hiring black coaches and black coaches getting a fair deal. But the issue I have with Anthony Lynn, sorry to cut you off, is that like he's very bad. I think his clock management and just his diagnosing of the team is horrible, and this is why they lose a lot of close games. Like, I think one of my big issues with Dallas under Jason Garrett was the same thing. I think that when you don't have a coach that can diagnose his team, and when people will be like, well, what do you mean diagnosis? And so it's things like this. Like, if you're up by 3 at the end of the game and your defense is struggling, you try to get the first down so they don't get back on the game. You win the game. Mm-hmm. And I think in so many cases, like Anthony Lynn and a coach like a Jason Garrett, because to me, they both are kind of the same kind of coach. They have these good years sometimes where you think, oh man, he's a good coach, but then they'll come back and they'll have a rather mediocre year and they lose a bunch of close games. And it's like not being able to diagnose the team, not managing the clock, just stuff like that. Those are the kind of things and that's the reason why they have lost so many close games, 1-possession games, where it's kind of like you have the hope as a fan that you're close to being there, but you kind of have to take a step back and say, well, man, we've been losing games like this for a few years, so maybe we aren't close. Maybe we need to move on from the coach.
Yeah, and that's why I think, especially now, when you have a franchise quarterback, and you just and you have the weapons. And I think, in theory, they do have a shot of being contenders in the AFC West going forward. They got the tools, and then especially you thinking now if Derwin James is healthy next year, that's another thing where you're hoping, you're optimistic. You're cautiously optimistic that he's going to be that he'll be healthy and at 100%. Once training camp starts. But yeah, Justin Herbert, man, that's what he's doing. He's impressed me. And it's honorable mentions. A lot of guys like we talk about Ja Morant. Also, you look at all the quarterbacks in the class of 2020 that's playing. I think even even though we only have a sample size of Jalen Hurts, but the case can be made for like Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa. Then also Chase Young. I think Chase Young, part of my bias, but he's another guy that I just
he's had a monster year.
Yeah, he's had a monster year. And I just love his impact going forward with this team. So I just like what he's doing down in Washington. Definitely an Ohio State guy that we can all trust and can gravitate to. That's all.
Yeah. Another guy I'll throw out there too is Justin Jefferson, man. He's having a monster year. You don't really see too many rookie. You don't see I actually didn't really care for them trading Stephon Diggs, even though he wanted out. And you don't expect for a rookie to basically give you the production of what Diggs gave you, and he's done that. And, he actually, I think if Herbert hadn't been having the year he had with Tua not really throwing the ball down the field and with Burrow being hurt, if Herbert hadn't had this monster year, I think Justin Jefferson could have easily have maybe won Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up that point because I remember, and this is if people want to go back, so we did a Couch Coach Live on September 7th, which was on Labor Day. I think it's Labor Day was September 7th. But anyway, It was Labor Day, whatever day you looked it up. I had Minnesota. I was kind of 50-50. I was kind of had a hot and cold take. So I said Minnesota was going to win the division. Mm-hmm. And I was really harping on Justin Jefferson. And I kind of misspoke. I said Jordan because I got him confused with his famous cousin, the former quarterback at LSU. I kept on kind of mentioning those two during the preview. So if you listen back to it, you'll hear me saying between Justin and Jordan, which I don't know why I got too confused, maybe because they're cousins and they both went to LSU. But that's here nor there. So and I said, it is tough to lose Stephon Diggs, but I do like him. I didn't think he was going to have a season like this, but I figured he was going to be semi-productive, coupled with guys like Adam Thielen and just that wide receiver core. I did not think he was going to shatter Randy Moss's rookie record. I was saying that right then and there. But I figured he was going to be productive. He was going to be a guy that I didn't even say I think he was going to match Stephon Diggs, but I think he could, in essence, kind of help. Like he can kind of contain those type of numbers. He could be a solid contributor.
Yeah. If you would have told me he was going to catch like 60 balls for like 850 yards, right, maybe 65 for 900, I'm like, okay, I think that's doable because I think, to be honest with you, man, rookie wide receivers generally they kind of struggle. I think that when I look at a good rookie year, I look at something like what Michael Gallup did with the Cowboys in 2018. He caught 40 balls for about. He caught about 40-something balls for about close to 700 yards, which I think is pretty good for a rookie because I think it takes them a while because generally speaking in college, the safety and the quarterback play isn't that great. So they get a lot of they're open a lot. But, they have to get adjusted to the coverages. But, I mean, he's done above and what I expected him to do, man. Like what is he at? He's like, I think he's over 1,100 yards. Is he at 1,200 yards or something like that? Yeah, man.
He's right there. He's at the doorstep at 1,200.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I was, that's one thing, too. I was like, I was really shocked at the production. But I figured Minnesota was going to win the division and he was going to have somewhat of a decent year, but I didn't think he was going to have this type of year. I'm going to be 100% honest, but definitely check out that NFL preview on Labor Day.
Okay, I will. I'll have to get to it.
Yeah. But yeah, and he you'll hear the Justin and Jordan mixing of the two and that as well. So, all right. So the most shocking moment in 2020.
Oh man, this was a tough one.
Yeah.
I would say, man, there were a few moments that were really shocking to me, but even so, since we're not going to do a disappointing, we're not going to do a disappointing team. I'm going to say, man, most shocking moment for me was that game 7 between the Clippers and the Nuggets, man. Like the Clippers just going full nuclear meltdown. That was a really shocking moment. And I mean, dude, man, it was a bummer too, man. Like that whole off season and for the whole year, we were expecting to see the Clippers versus Lakers conference finals. And man, that was just a fucking gut punch. And honestly, man, like the Nuggets deserve to win because of what happened, but man, that was a gut punch, man. And like kind of like I'm still disappointed we didn't get to see that last year. I'm hoping that this year we get to see it.
I know. And I knew for certain, and it's funny because and funny that we talked about it, and I remember me and Maui had a bet. And it's funny because at that particular time, because we went on air, matter of fact, coincidentally on March the 10th, before the world just went crazy.
Yeah.
And so that was coming off the heels of the Lakers beating the Clippers. And we were all like, well, this is going to be the Western Conference preview, Western Conference Finals. Let's place our bets right now. We was putting our bets on the table right then and on the episode. And what's funny about all that is because we were like, well, because at first, and I'll put it real with you, because Lakers fans really won't. That week was kind of where everybody kind of came into the shadows, because like Maui was the same way, because we would kind of casually talk about, like, we talked a little bit about the opening day loss that they had last year to the Lakers. And then the Christmas Day game.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like, I don't know. But then, that Sunday night Sunday game that they had right before we had the show on March 10th. Well, so and everybody was like, oh well, I don't know. The Lakers done got themselves together. And that's when everybody was so confidently, and not even that kind of single out Maui, but other people too were kind of in that type of time frame. They were like, oh yeah, the Lakers gonna be hot. We beat them. We'll be, because that was the weekend that they beat Milwaukee as well, and so everybody was all like, oh man, this team is gonna be for real, and so that was
they beat and they beat Boston in the same time period too, because that was a Sunday afternoon game on ABC, so they had a real good week, man, that was just a gut punch, man. Like, and dude, man, I think I knew it was over with, man, when Denver got the lead in the third quarter and Doc Rivers panicked and he decided to go with Reggie Jackson. I was like, oh my God, it's over with.
Yeah.
I was like, it's over. And PG, but that was the most shocking moment to me. What about you? What was your shocking moment?
So my shocking moment is when the NBA got when the NBA essentially on March 11th, when the NBA shut down. So what's funny about all this, and what's crazy about, and these are one of, like, between March the 11th and March 12th are the 2 days that, long as I have air in my lungs and just beat my must live, I'm gonna remember these days for the rest of my life. These 2 days in conjunction. Now March 11th was weird, because March 11th, and it was funny, and it's kind of funny, like, because when we aired a show on March the 10th, that was on a Tuesday, and at that time, little things were going on, because at that time I think we broke the news about the Ivy League canceling their tournaments, their basketball postseason tournaments.
Yeah.
So we was kind of still kind of an influx. We were still thinking that everything was still going to go to fray. We knew at that time, just little rumblings, but at that time when we did a show on March the 10th, nothing really happened. But then the next day, everything became fluid. Like, what was weird, because I remember, and it's funny because the day after, which was the 12th, I was going on a trip. We was going to up to New York. So that was my last day at work. So imagine it was like 9, 10 o'clock. We, then they got a news story talking about some, because I think the Warriors and the Nets were playing in Golden State, and at that time they weren't going to have fans. That's what we knew for certain, because I think they had a Thursday night game, and they said, well, we're not going to have fans in the stands for that particular game. I go to Walmart, getting ready, get prepped, I go to the store, try to get some stuff for my trip. And it's funny because I realized when people said people was running out of toilet paper, I didn't believe it. I'm being real with you. I wouldn't say I'm a skeptic in certain things, but I'm like, why is everybody getting toilet paper? Why is everybody out of? So I go to the Walmart now. Mind you, I go to a Walmart right by my job, and I go down an aisle, not knowing this was the aisle that the toilet paper was. I'm talking about bare, empty shelves, and I'm like, what was here? And I said, somebody, I was like, what was here? And then they was like, man, this is the toilet paper aisle. I'm like, what? Like the toilet paper's gone? Like for real? Like toilet paper's gone. So I'm already kind of low-key freaking out. So then at 8:00, now mind you, the game is on now. The game is on. We'll watch, I think it was Dallas. I forgot Dallas and somebody else was playing on ESPN. They canceled the OKC Utah game.
Because of Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. Yep.
And what's crazy, because at that time we didn't know about Rudy Gobert. I mean, we didn't know about Donovan Mitchell quite yet.
Yeah.
Remember, it was just Rudy Gobert at that particular time. So that was weird. So then backtrack, we knew the games were canceled, so they let the Mavericks play on to their game. And then that's when we knew about, then we knew the season was going to be ending that night. Vince Carter, his final shots, I was a little low-key sad about that, but, him. And it's funny because he hit that final shot, that final three that was kind of unorthodox. I knew that was it for Vince. I knew for certain. Yeah. And then, now imagine, that was supposed to be a doubleheader. Remember, that was a doubleheader. The Pelicans and the Kings were playing.
Yeah.
Right? So so we're thinking, okay, well, this is going to be the final game that we're going to see for the foreseeable future. Lo and behold, they canceled the game because the referee was in contact with Utah because they played Monday. So who was it? Like Lonzo Ball was still on the court. Brandon Ingram was like, dude, we got to go. Like, I don't know if you remember that, but I was like, because Lonzo Ball was still shooting and thinking that the game was going to happen. Game was canceled, and then it was just such a snowball effect where you look at, like, that was the first time I was like, it was weird, because it kind of go back to the point where this is after. Then that's when we found out about the NCAA tournament was going to be. Wasn't going to have any fans. That was that Wednesday evening. Matter of fact, on my way home from the empty toilet paper rack at Walmart, it was just like,
yeah,
are you kidding me? Like, and that's another thing. And then then the whole thing of, because it was just such a fluid situation, because even kind of prior to it, where you heard little rumblings. Okay, remember, like, they didn't have the media, because I remember that's what I was. Matter of fact, that March 10th podcast, that was when they announced that the media wasn't gonna it was only gonna be a certain amount of media allowed at the games. Yep. And we thought that was the most dumbest thing, because we was like, well, if you get rid of the media, they're gonna still, like, it's more, because we even was ahead of it, because we was like, well, it's not even an issue with the media, it's with the issue with the players, because they're the ones that are the ones that are constantly traveling. And we were like, because, like, we looked at, like, and it's funny when they talked about Rudy Gobert, like how he was in at that time, they were in 4 or 5 cities in like 6 days. Like, so, and I was like, well, why, because it's like, it should be more concerned on the players more so than the media. And that's funny, like, it's weird, like, how when you think about, you sit back and you look at those kind of time periods of how, man, I always look at March 10th as like kind of a weird show that we did, where it was like so much stuff was going on that day, and it was fluid, and then just all of it, just between in that 48-hour period, just everything just happened so quick, and it was like a movie, like, where certain developments happened, and going back to, I remember in kind of so we ended up taking the trip up to New York, so we took the train. And it was funny, everything was happening in the midst of us being on the train. Because at that time, that's when we found out about Donovan Mitchell.
Mhm.
And we were like, oh goodness, like everybody, you know. So and we first was thinking like, oh my goodness, like what if they would have played? Like
Yeah.
how many people would have got affected? Then
Mhm.
at that time, remember the Big East. At that time, the Big East was still playing. So we
Mhm.
were like, okay, well, our backup plan was Big East. Then we get to New York. Big East is done. We knew ACC was. We heard about ACC being done because they awarded Florida State the championship and somewhat of a hollow, weird championship kind of situation where they kind of gave them the trophy. And you know, in that situation, then the evening they canceled the NCAA tournament, and it was just so weird, like how all that happened
Oh
within
yeah,
a
man. And,
period.
dude, that was rough, man. Because like I was thinking, man, like I haven't been home to watch an NCAA tournament in a while. I
Right,
was like, I'm
right,
gonna come home. I was like, I'll hit up Chris. We can eat some pizza. I can go, like, he can come
right.
over to the crib with. And then like when they canceled, I was
Yeah.
like, shit, man. I was like, this is different. Yeah, but
I'm telling you, it was I'm not gonna front, like it was kind of like horrible because we, you know, at that time because we were this when we found out we were in New York, and it's crazy because we was that was weird now. I think about it in theory. I think one of the last times I went to a restaurant was in New York, out of all places.
yeah,
And it's so funny because we were just sitting there, and it's like you literally the looks on our face was just we were just despondent because, like you said, that's like, and you know, kind of it's like a tradition, like especially like between like me and my uncles, where you know we would always like kind of hang out during the tournament. And I remember one year, you know, at the time I was on the road, I was really like kind of like it kind of messed me up for a few days. I was like, yeah, you know, I only get to see it, you know, with my family and friends stuff. So I was like, it's kind of messed me up. But like you said, the tournament is the tournament, and like you said, and you're like, and it's funny because and I remember, and I don't know if you remember when, because at that time, and that's what was so funny. Like all this stuff happened in a weird, like the chronological order and all this stuff happened. Because I remember when the ACC put a caboose on the tournament on the
me
conference.
too. Yeah, me too.
And then Coach K was like, "Well, I don't want to play in the tournament." And then I
Mhm.
remember the father at that particular time. That was probably around about 1-2 o'clock ish. And then everybody was like, "Oh, you know, whatever." And then like 2 hours later, the tournament is canceled.
Yeah.
And and, and that just felt so bad. And it was weird. That's one thing too. When you have two teams that you root for, like wholeheartedly, you're torn because
Yeah.
and what killed me was what really pissed me off. So the last game that was played in the ACC tournament in Syracuse beat the brakes off my Tar Heels. That's what pissed me off.
Whoa. Well, but you know what, man? It's almost like 20. It's almost like this. It's almost like the season never happened. So
Right. And that's why part of me, and on that end, that's great. But then a team like Richmond, that messed me up
oh
because
well, dude, Richmond, dude, man,
yeah,
Richmond
they deserved it.
Richmond had gotten it together, man. I think
Mhm.
Richmond probably would have made the tournament, and they would have been a scary team to play in the tournament. And then
Yeah,
also, I felt bad. I felt bad for Dayton, man, because Dayton had a
yeah,
really good team. I'm not saying that they would have made the Final Four, but that was their shot
yeah,
right there, man. Like they had a really, really, really good team. It's so much what
yeah.
ifs, like, cause like I mean, honestly, Gonzaga maybe could have won the national championship last year. Kansas, Bill Self, man, like you have to say, man, Bill Self is probably him and Tom Izzo are in that group of coaches where they haven't been validated yet because they don't have that second national championship.
Mhm.
That could have been Bill Self's
Yeah,
that could have been Bill Self's moment last year, man, and like
yeah.
it didn't happen. So
And yeah, and that's what that was really the reason of us going to Brooklyn because we're like, well, you know, especially for Richmond having that type of great record, and then seeing guys like Obi
yeah,
Toppin, see him kind of, you know, going back home in essence, kind of going to Brooklyn and showing out. I thought, you know, that was going to be kind of the prevailing theme, and that's why low key I'm hoping that this year sticks because at this point I think Gonzaga is head and shoulders better than any team I've seen this year at this point.
oh yeah, they are. They're and
And
then there are some other teams too. Like I mean, I hope it happens too,
yeah,
dude, man. We were fucking kids the last time Rutgers made the NCAA tournament. Rutgers is gonna make the NCAA tournament this year.
Yeah.
Willing, yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
So they're at Northwestern looks good this year too. So I just think that there are some teams. I mean, I think Richmond is good this year too.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if VCU can bounce back, because VCU was horrible last year. They went from being a team that people thought were like NCAA sleepers to like they weren't going to even make the NIT last year. They might not even have made the CBI last year. So, you know, like I hope we're able to finish the season, man, because I think that it's going to be the tournament is always interesting, man. And like there's always that one team you don't expect to do good, and they're gonna turn some heads, man.
Yeah, and that was just a very weird situation. But yeah, so let's get into our top 3 moments. So what we'll do, we'll kind of bounce around. So I'm gonna get your third, your top 3 moments. I'm gonna go with your third top moment, and then we'll kind of, you know.
Ooh, top 3 moments, man, of last year of 2020. Well, could I say something that happened from 2019?
That carried over?
Yeah, well, no, so man, I can't because what I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of the Washington Nationals, because they had a couple of moments, but that was obviously in 2019. Okay. 2020, I'll start. Why don't you start first? I want to hear something from you first. Yeah.
So I reveal my we'll just do top 3. So I look at, even though, like you said, and it kind of piggyback to my other point. I think even though I say my favorite moments, top moments can be good or bad. So I'm gonna look at my first thing was March 12th. I think just the whole simple fact of kind of being in New York during this situation. It was a kind of a weird, strange, and I remember the day that sports ended, the headline in the New York Post, seeing that kind of like firsthand at a corner store right by the hotel. That was kind of like, it almost felt like impending doom. So I look at that as kind of one of the weirdest moments. And then just being in that area and just kind of in a weird way, how Times Square was so spooky and nothing to do. It's weird. The city that don't sleep, and there was nothing to do because everything closed. So I looked at that. That was another moment. The Last Dance. I think The Last Dance, those 5 Sundays that we had was great. I looked at those moments as essentially, it made me feel, for the 5 Sundays in this year, I felt like a 13-year-old kid again. Felt like I was in the 8th grade at Fairfield Middle School, reliving the 1997-98 Chicago Bulls. And it was a hell of a ride. It was great those 5 weeks. It was just such a great time period, especially when we were so devoid of sports, where we had course competitions and people playing 2K and Andre Drummond just getting jumped out the floor by Boogie Cousins in 2K, and I mean all these little weird things that was going on. So to have viable content, and we're not seeing Chris Paul playing horse with Zach LaVine on an iPad and just all that silliness. And so those are kind of the top moments. Then the other, in a weird way, I would guess I would say my top moments probably the last sporting event I went to, which in a weird way, I didn't think this would kind of be tops. It was just an average Wednesday night, and had a couple of my work colleagues join me. We were playing George Mason, and I mean coincidentally, as we talked to you as a proud George Mason alum, and so it's funny, February 19th, 2020. That's when we went to the Robins Center and had a great time. Great win by the Spiders, and I kept on. That was kind of my rally cry. Like, we get ready to go to Brooklyn. 3 weeks going to Brooklyn, and just all that. And then now you look at it, it was fun just being around amongst people, which now it's frowned upon if you're around a bunch of people. At the time, we didn't wear masks. We didn't have to.
Yeah.
We didn't have to social distance.
Yeah.
It was we were in an abundance of crowds, and it was just it was a great electric kind of night. Especially for I think that was a Wednesday night, and it was just kind of a nice vibe at that time. And yeah, so that was my last sporting event.
Oh, okay. Well, so I'm gonna throw out some for you. So
Mhm.
I think my number three moment, game four of the first round series between the Clippers and the Mavericks, man, that Luka Doncic shot, like that was like kind of like his. And I think that it was cool to see Dallas in the playoffs because Dallas doesn't come on TV a lot. Like, and what's crazy is like when we think of like market size, I think that people honestly think the Dallas Mavericks are a small market, and Dallas is one of the top 10 biggest cities in America, and they just don't kind of get their respect. And they have a billionaire owner who is not afraid to spend money, but like that was his welcome to the NBA moment, and I'm hoping that a lot of people got to actually see him, and I'm hoping he continues to grow. But like that was my number three moment.
Yeah.
My number two moment, I'm gonna go with World Series, man. Like game four of the World Series, that ending with basically the Devil Rays winning their last game of the series, the Evan Phillips hit, and then the error, and Randy Arozarena coming around the bases, he slips, and you think he's dead to race, and the catcher lets the ball go past him. He scores the game-winning run. That was an insane ending to a baseball game. That was a very, very, very crazy ending to. That was one of the craziest endings to a baseball game I've ever seen in my life before. You had like the game-tying hit, then you have the moment where you think, "Oh shit, this guy's out at the plate." To the moment. Get up! The ball went past you. You need to score so we can win this game. So that was a great moment. I actually was thinking about that the other day, and I looked at it on YouTube again. I was like, "Damn, man, this is crazy." It was like, okay, it was so much stuff happening on that. Like you had a ball that was not hit really hard. If they had not been in the shift, that's probably an out. But because they were in the shift, it ends up being a hit. Then the center fielder makes an error, which basically allows because Rosarita probably only ends up in third base, but because of the error, that gives him a chance to score. Then he slips. And he thinks he's dead to race. So you had a hit and you had two errors on the same play and 2 runs score on the same play. That was crazy.
Yeah.
And I would say, man, my number one sports moment of the year was actually Game 5 of the finals, man. That duel between Jimmy Butler and LeBron James, man, that was one of the best. Even though, and I think that I think we'll probably forget about, and there were other games too, because I think that game 6 of the second round between the Celtics and the Raptors was a great game too.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a great game too. So we had some great ball games, but I would say that game 5, that duel between Jimmy Butler and LeBron James was amazing. The ending of the game, because you think Miami's going to win, then you think the Lakers are going to close them out in 5 games, and then Miami ends up winning, and that was their swan song, their last win of the season. But it was a great game, man. It was a duel, man.
And you know what's so funny? So in that game, because I remember at that time, because they was like, who's gonna take the last shot for the Lakers? And we all like on Twitter was like, Danny Green. Yeah. Danny Green. I was like, watch, it's gonna be Danny Green, he's gonna sink that shot. And lo and behold, he didn't. But then I think even like you said in the bubble, what I kind of liked about the bubble in a weird kind of way is the matinee games. I was such a fan of those where we were having games at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh yeah,
especially like in the beginning, like especially in the first round where we had games started like 1 o'clock. Like we had essentially quadruple headers in the first round, so I thought that was really kind of cool and. All that is considered. And then kind of another weird kind of thing that happened in the bubble too was the protests. And that was kind of, and it was funny. And that's one thing too, like where, especially, and that's what I love about kind of the social media aspect of all, of what's going on now in sports, where on Twitter, we were all kind of going back and forth. We were like, and I kept on saying, well, I don't think they're going to play because it's 3:45 game at 4 o'clock. Ain't nobody here. Orlando left. Remember, like around like 3:50. We were like, okay, this is not a good sign. Then like 405, the equipment guys take the magnetic. I'll call it that time. It was the seating assignments off the chairs. And I was like, oh, they're not playing. And then, then we did what we call like an emergency podcast that night. So that was kind of cool, like to kind of, cover something in that type of immediacy where we were like, all right, let's do like an immediate podcast and talk about it. And in another way, how sports ended, that sports was paused for a few days and just all the stuff that is going on with that. So yeah, the bubble was fun. The bubble was a fun thing to do. Like, I'm gonna definitely miss those matinee basketball games, and
Oh, me too. I think everybody is. I think everybody is, man.
And that's one thing too. That's one thing that was good about this year, where you got certain things where we had Wednesday night football. This year we had a Tuesday night games. We all different kinds.
Oh yeah.
And the NFL became second fiddle to the Rockefeller Christmas tree lighting, which is so bizarre in 2020. Like, because essentially that's why the Ravens and Steelers game got pushed up to 3:40, so they have time to, and time for that to happen, for the Rockefeller tree lighting, which that's funny that gets second billing in 2020. Only in 2020 where the NFL gets to become a second fiddle.
Yeah.
And it's just a very crazy. It's just a very crazy year, and it was definitely had its highs and its lows, and so our final topic of 2020 is actually a topic going forward here in 2021. So, give us some hot takes for this upcoming year.
Oof, hot takes, man. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in basketball, man, because they're playing a 72-game season. These back-to-backs are going to be crazy, man, because you're playing back-to-backs, not doing a home-road back-to-back, but you're doing a road back-to-back or a home back-to-back with the same team. So I just think that what we're going to see in 2021 in sports, we're going to see that I think that teams that, especially in basketball and in ice hockey, which is going to start soon in the NHL, I think the teams that get off to really, really fast starts are going to be set. Like, I think I was talking to somebody about this too, I could see a team like the Phoenix Suns getting off to a really good start and them possibly finishing top 4 or top 3 in the West. So I think that teams that get off to a really, really, really fast start are going to be better suited. Now, I wouldn't make a big deal if your team is just getting together, and they could come together at the end of the year. But I think teams that get off to fast starts are gonna, definitely they'll be set, and they won't have to worry about the play-in shenanigans and stuff like that. And there are gonna be some coaches that lose their jobs, man. I was thinking about it, man. Like with Milwaukee. If Milwaukee is kind of teetering after 20 games and like they're barely over 500, I could definitely see the Bucks making a move and them firing Budenholzer. I really could.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, it could definitely happen. Mine's gonna be more so of in the football variety, where Jacksonville, the prodigal son, will arrive in April. Just wait on it. Trevor Lawrence will join a prestigious quarterback class in Jacksonville. You're talking about Mark Brunell of the world, David Garrard, Byron Leftwich. And I know you're drinking, but a little bit of Blake Bortles, a tad bit of Blake Bortles. He did put them in the AFC Championship game, so let's kind of give him a little respect. So, Trevor Lawrence, he will put butts in seats in Jacksonville. You're gonna have guys coming from Clemson, South Carolina, to come and see the young man. Jacksonville Jaguars will stay in Jacksonville. There will be. You might go to London maybe once or twice, but you're not going to lose on that Trevor Lawrence money.
Oh no!
No. Right. They're not going to Jacksonville. I mean, they're not. Yeah. Like there won't be no tarp. There won't be no tarp covering those seats because those seats are going to have butts in them because Trevor Lawrence is going to bring them out. And yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a fairly I'll give you another football hot take. I think that Alex Smith plays this week. I think he plays this week. I think that he plays admirably. I'm not gonna say what I think is gonna happen, but I think at the end of the year, I think Alex Smith is gonna retire. I think that he'll win comeback player of the year this year, and I think he'll retire. That's one of my hot takes as well. And that's one of my hot takes. And then another hot take of mine is that I think that Pittsburgh, they look at drafting a quarterback. I think that Ben Roethlisberger, you can definitely see that his skills are kind of diminishing. He's 38 years old, soon to be 39, and I think that the Steelers are going to end up drafting a quarterback at some point. Probably this offseason they draft a quarterback.
Yeah, because at this point, Mason Rudolph not going to cut it.
Oh no, he's not. He's starting on Sunday too. By the way, too.
Yes, and that's a gift for the Cleveland Browns.
It would be such a 2020 thing if Cleveland loses that game. Mason. Oh my God!
I'm gonna tell you one thing. It's already bad enough that you lose to the Jets, but if you lose this game when Pittsburgh don't have nothing to play for, and you go and lose, it's over. It's a wrap.
Oh, yeah,
you can't. Even though I'm not saying it's a wrap for 2020. For 2020. But to me, you've had so many gold opportunities to get in the playoffs. This is your shot. Take advantage of it.
Yeah. Now, what do you think happens, man? I really want to know who doesn't make the playoffs in the AFC, man, because there is going to be a team that wins 10 games, or possibly a team that wins 11 games wins 11 games that doesn't make the playoffs. Now, so here's the thing. I don't like the way the Dolphins have been playing, man, and I'm not sure what the Bills are going to do, but it's going to be a tough task for you to have the Dolphins. I would like their chances better if they started Fitzpatrick, but you're going to have the Dolphins go up into Buffalo. It's going to be cold as hell outside, and you expect them to win a football game when their offense has been struggling.
Right.
I'm leaning towards Miami missing the playoffs this year. I really am.
And in a sick, weird, twisted way, a part of me, Tennessee's in trouble because I look at it now. The whole JJ Watt kind of going off, and I think they're gonna have a pretty good game.
Yeah.
A part of me is because I think for a certain, if I look at it now and this Tuesday, you're looking at the final game without Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars, the shoe-in for the Colts to win. Yeah. This will be the last game without Trevor Lawrence before T-Law. But anyway,
what if Trevor Lawrence wins the national championship this year? He's like, no, I've thought long and hard about this. I'm going to come back for my senior year. What if he does that? What if he says that? Guys, I really thought about it. I don't want to play for Jacksonville. I'm gonna come back for my senior year.
That's the ultimate betrayal because to me, a part of me, because it's kind of a double entendre for me because then my guy won't be the number one pick in 2022. So I'll be kind of pissed about that because I want him to be the highest drafted player in University of North Carolina history. Because even though Mitch is there, nephew Mitch Trubisky.
Hey man, he's been playing pretty decent as of late, man. Yeah.
But if Trevor Lawrence goes back, I really Jacksonville's plans have really dashed. Even though there are some good quarterbacks in this class, but what was it? I forgot who sung that song. Nothing compares to Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, nothing, yeah, I know.
Nothing compares to you. That is Trevor Lawrence. So to me, And people say, I exercise in hyperbole, but Trevor Lawrence is that guy. I don't care what nobody say. I've seen a multitude of his games. I've been a victim once upon a time. I've been on the receiving end of a Trevor Lawrence game as well. So, to me, if he does, it would be crazy. But I don't know, Jacksonville, they would be really stuck because if who would you get? I mean, would you get the kid from BYU? Would you get a Ohio State product?
Mm-hmm.
As far as do you trust a Justin Fields, the Lance from North Dakota State? Like you have options, but you don't.
Yeah, no.
Like, if you this is the year that you don't want to have a backup plan, like especially if you're Jacksonville, because nobody's gonna trade up to get to help you per se. I don't teams might get desperate, but if that's gonna be an issue.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Yeah, man. Like, cause you're right. Tennessee could hypothetically miss the playoffs too. Like, cause I forgot that they lost it. Them and Indy both have the same record because they got thrashed by Green Bay. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give you another hot take, man. Man, and it's just crazy how the MVP race has changed so much in the NFL this year. Like you would have said after 5 games that it was definitely Russell Wilson. Then you would have said probably from like game 6 to game 13, you would have said it was Mahomes. Now I'm starting to think that there is a chance that Aaron Rodgers might swoop in and steal the MVP at the last second. I think it's going to end up being. If you would have asked me a few weeks ago, I would have said it was Mahomes. Nothing that Mahomes has done has been bad, but he has thrown more interceptions as of late. Yeah. And I just think, man, I think it's going to come down to him and Aaron Rodgers. And I think that this race is really close. But I do see a path of Aaron Rodgers winning the MVP now.
Yeah.
And I would have thought if somebody would have told me that back November 20th, I would have said you were crazy. But I definitely do see a path of him winning the MVP now, especially with how he played in that game on Sunday on prime time at nighttime in the snow. I mean, like I definitely see a path of him winning the MVP this year.
And and quiet as kept, he can almost have that same kind of performance next week. Because they're playing for something, So
oh yeah, dude, I think the Bears are. Dude, I think the Bears are toast, man. Like people keep saying, well, the Bear, dude. So here's the thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
The Bears have to win.
They have to.
Now Arizona is 8-7. Mm-hmm. The way I look at it, man, I think Arizona and St. Louis both make the playoffs. I think they both end up 9-7. I think that why am I saying St. Louis? LA. Yeah. LA. I think that Arizona finds a way to win. And they both end up 9-7. They both end up in the playoffs, and the Bears end up being 8-8. The Bears end up getting left out in the cold. That's what I think ends up happening.
And that's the thing. And the biggest thing is if Kyler Murray is playing.
Yeah,
that's another thing. Then you already know, like with the Rams, they're gonna be without Jared Goff. So that's another thing where you're like, that can help Arizona going forward. So I mean, it's gonna definitely be interesting. But yeah, I would not be surprised if Tennessee don't make it because it's a weird thing with the Houston situation and then J.J. Watt is going off, and I think that's going to kind of galvanize them, and they'll win one for Romeo. Send Romeo out.
Yeah, well, and you know what, and dude, and you know what, man, like I think that like if they don't make the playoffs, man, that's a real big collapse because you look at it, they were 5-0 at one point this year. They were 5-0, and that means that they would have gone 5. So I mean, you basically look at it, they're a 500 team the last 10 games because they're 10-5 now. So they've been. Yeah.
And remember, this was the team that dusted Buffalo on the first Tuesday night game that we witnessed this year. So you look at that and you're like, oh boy, like this is gonna be interesting.
And you know what? They're another team, man. They've been fortunate, man. They've won a lot of close games. Like I was telling somebody, like you look at Pittsburgh, you look at Tennessee, they could honestly have a few more losses on their record. Like, because let's just be honest, man, Tennessee probably should have lost to Baltimore. And then if they lose that game, they're in a very precarious situation right now. So
yeah. So yeah, man. So let's put a bow on Couch Coach Live for the year of 2020. So this is it for the year. So JB, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Facebook. Jamie Bailey. Okay. My resolutions, I'm gonna make an Instagram account for next year.
Man.
Yes.
Yeah. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And but yeah, so definitely follow the podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram on the Couch Coach Live. Also, check out the podcast on Apple, Spotify. Also, check out the check out the YouTube page, and definitely I want to appreciate everybody who's been a part of Couch Coach Live this year. The guests that we've had, everybody who's been on the podcast this year. Definitely appreciate everybody for taking their time this year to be a part of this. And man, we'll catch you guys in 2021. Man, this has been Couch Coach Live for the year of 2020. Catch you next year.
All right, peace out.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. All right.